Thank you, Pat. A high school coach is just simply awed by getting inducted with such a prestigious team as my classmates this year. And not only that, but all the members of this organization. And my job here today is to give a lot of thank yous, because I was always where the athletes were, in 3 schools. And it was like I had a compass that pointed me toward that. And the first stop was at Mansfield Junior High School. And there I had the opportunity to coach such athletes as Bert Otero, who's back there. Will the group from Mansfield please stand up? They gave me my start. And Bert Otero was a pass catcher I saw running for touchdowns in flag football several times with those flags trailing behind him. I can still see it. Guess who threw him the football? Ron Hassey. And guess who was protecting Hassey from somebody grabbing his flag? Mike Dawson. The first year, we weren't too good at all at really anything. But we got used to one another, and those kids developed into great athletes, and we won the opportunity for the divisional, and were able to play for the city championship in football. And the thing was, we played Spring Junior High, which was pretty close to Mansfield. They both fed Tucson High School. We lost that game because we went up against such bombshells as Marvin Lewis, who some of you will remember. Bless his heart. He didn't get to compete in college because of an accident and passed away early. But they formed a core. Those 2 schools formed a core of Ollie Mayfield's 2 football championships at Tucson High School. So you know that they were good. And so I thank all you young men from Mansfield. You gave me a fantastic start. Then at the end of the second year, I was teaching reading English and one class of PE, coaching 3 sports. And my principal came to me and said, Bill, Carson is opening up this fall. And he said, I know you're a PE man, and so I will give you a good recommendation to get that job if you'd like it. And I said, you know what? I think I'll stay here. Hassey and Dawson are coming back, and they got a lot of support. And he looked at me out of the corner of his eye like I was crazy, and I was being, to do that for 1 year at junior high school. But it was kind of funny, because there was a young man that came to Mansfield my second year who I knew to be a basketball player, but I didn't know how good. And he would come out once in a while and watch me coach basketball practice. Never kibitzed or anything, but did talk about some of the talent that he thought that I had there. And when my principal came to me and said that Carson was opening up and that he knew I was a PE man, he would give me a great recommendation, and then he thought that would get me the job. And so, you know, I refused it. But this young man took that job at Carson that I refused to apply for. And right at the end of the school year, Roland Levetter called me and said, you know what, Carson's going to be upset with me because Pueblo called me and wants me to be their freshman basketball coach. And most of you may not know this, but his name is on the gymnasium out at Pueblo now, and he coached 2 or 3 state championship teams. So he did me a real favor, because I decided then that I had been a little crazy about staying at the junior high school 1 year for a group of outstanding talents. And then when I went to Carson, it took us a couple of years to really get things going, and my flag football team got to play for the championship game again. And we lost that game also, but there were 6 members of that team that formed a core of the players in 1973 at Palo Verde High School that helped win Palo Verde their first state football championship. And the little guy I taught to play quarterback, guy that Palo Verde down the field in the last minute of play, and Palo Verde won the game that way, and that was pretty gratifying and exciting to me, who couldn't be at that game. So then, the time at Carson led me to get in touch with the third year with a coach by the name of Larry. Boy, that's funny. 85 years old, and you start forgetting names that you've just talked to somebody 5 minutes ago. Larry Williams, yeah. And Larry, I was lucky because he wanted to use our field at Carson for practice when their field wasn't ready. And I asked my permission. I said, certainly. And my acquaintanceship with Larry, I know, helped me get the job at Santa Rita High School. And I served as his assistant in track and football the first year. And then at the end of that first year, and he had the track team really going by that time. And I got a call from Mr. Slagle, the principal. And when that happens, you wonder, hey, what's going on? You know, what did I do wrong? I got into the office, and he said, you know, I'd like to relieve Larry of one of his head coaching jobs. And I was going to do that in track and field, and I wonder if you'd be interested. And that really relieved me, because I thought maybe I'd done something wrong, but I answered in the affirmative. And from there on, I tell you, I had more athletes than you can shake a stick at. And as a matter of fact, my bio, you might be able to read it and say, Bland enters the Hall of Fame because he didn't screw up a golden opportunity. I had so many. Would the young men from Santa Rita please stand up? I wish you could, you know, when Coach Dick Tomey was inducted 2 years ago, he stood up and kind of relieved my mind, because I was nominated at the time, and I was saying, what in the world can I say, you know, to such an awesome group? And he talked about relationships. He says coaching is relationships. And from those coaching relationships developed these big man hugs, and he demonstrated them. I wish you could have been with me the last 2 nights, first at Jim Ferguson's home and then at Ronnie Great's home, where they honored Dave Lynch and myself. And just to see all those man hugs and all that bond of friendship that develops when you compete in athletics and you go through the thick and the thin together, and it forms a lifetime thing. And that is so gorgeous to see. So I thank all you men for that. And I had to leave coaching after 10 years because I had a wife that became bedfast. And I stayed out of education for 14 years, went back to Santa Rita, reincarnated as a special education teacher. And I didn't intend to coach, but you know how that goes. You go out to a track meet, you get the fever again. And so I got to work a little bit, just voluntary the first year. And the second year I joined as an assistant to the girls track coach, Ted Roberts. Ted Roberts, where are you? Would you stand up, Ted? Ted's one of the finest gentlemen and track coaches that always had, you know, cared for his athletes to the utmost. And I learned a lot from him about distance running, because I coached football and track and not the distance team. But I'll tell you what else happened at Santa Rita. The years that we won those 2 state track championships in 1979 and 1981, we had a distance team that just would not quit. And they had those 3 teams from 1970s, 9, 80, and 81 won the state cross-country championship. And the last 2 years, Tommy Ansbury was our champion both years. And he'll be in this hall, I hope, next year because he was even competed in Olympic trials. And I'm not sure exactly what year it was, but for those kids to be so good at that point in time in 1979, 80, and 81, there was a young man that had run track at Catalina High School that decided that he wanted to be a custodian, and the first person that he picked out to work with was Jim Pyers, who I nominated 2 years ago, and he was inducted for his basketball skills, but Jim was also a fantastic runner. And Bill Thweet worked with those kids at Marshall, including Tommy Ansbury, and guided them to different meets where they had to travel. What he did, his father owned a bunch of real estate, gave him jobs to earn ways to make the trips. And I had no idea what his full impact on the chances for my teams to win state championships until I attended a reunion of what they called the Camel Trotters running club. Jim Pyers was the one that organized that. He invited me to hear it, and there were 11 of us at that up at La Paloma, and you should have seen the relationships and the man hugs that took place there, because Bill Thweet really did us a big favor, and at one time I thought he was interfering with our coaching staff. So I wish Bill could be here, but he's in Nepal, I believe it is, working with people who are less chance, and he has been doing that for about 20 years. So hats off to Bill Thweet. I wish he could be here. Okay, I would like now to tell the people that I have competed in sport, track and field or football for me, to remain long enough to accept some thank you man hugs. If anybody refuses, then we're going to run about 3 sets of ladders of 100, 200, and 300 yards with only 2 seconds rest between. Thank you. That's my story. I'm sticking by it.